And we are live. You already know who it is. My name is Mike Kyle, aka the Fantasy Vulture. I have over a decade worth of fantasy football experience and have continuously competed for fantasy championships over the course of the past 6 seasons. Let's make it 7 in 2020. But enough of me. I'm here for you on today's episode of the FV Show. We are kicking off something a little bit different. More on that in just a little bit, but this is going to be our Week 14 takeaways video, where we're going to go through all the action from Week 14 and dissect what's actually important in terms of fantasy football, because one of the things that I was really picking up on was a lot of things that happened every single Sunday were things that either I thought were going to happen, trends that continued, or blatantly things that didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. So instead of trying to create a 2-hour video breaking down every single game, which is nice in theory, I figured we'd do it this way instead. Save you some time, save me some time, so that way we can get on to the next week. But let's go through this real quick. We're going to kick off right with a banger, and as you can see, we got a brand new thing happening here on Fantasy Vulture, and that is 21 days of content, my version of 25 days of Christmas. We have 3 weeks left in the fantasy football season. Playoffs are here. Playoffs are upon us. We are in the middle of trying to win a goddamn championship this season, and what better way to do that than by kicking off some daily content every single day from now, December 14th, all the way through January 3rd through the end of Week 17. So if you are excited and you want to see what we got cooking up in store for that, I advise that you follow me here, subscribe here on YouTube, check out the podcast, Fantasy Vulture, wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, wherever. You can also follow me on all social media platforms. That did not work well. My hand disappeared, so you can kind of see it. Follow me on all social media platforms at FF Vulture, because a lot of good things are going to be cooking up over there. And overall, I'm just really excited because I want to make one final push to get those numbers up before the end of the fantasy football season, to just kind of round out year one. I'll talk about this probably in a future video, but I'm really happy with the way that things turned out for this channel this year. But I guess let's just dive in, shall we, with some takeaways from Week 14. Where are my tabs at here? There we go. All right, we're going to start off with the Broncos and the Panthers. I just said the Patriots. The Broncos and the Panthers. My one big takeaway here is Tim Patrick. And I want to spend some time talking about him because I feel like I haven't given him the respect that he deserves. He's always just been this ancillary piece for the Broncos. He's been a guy that's gotten in the end zone a lot, but the truth of the matter is Tim Patrick has been the best wide receiver on the Broncos this season. He's currently comes in at wide receiver 36 in PPR format, so he's right on that line for being a wide receiver 3. But you look at some of the other players who he's been around, right? Jerry Jeudy, a guy who's super talented, hyped up rookie, is currently wide receiver 52. KJ Hamler just came in and scored 2 touchdowns. Hamler also missed some time early on in the year. But KJ Hamler still, despite the fact that he's playing 75% of snaps a game, is wide receiver 74. We know the struggles of Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay throughout the year. We know the struggles of Noah Fant, who's been in and out of the lineup, right? Tim Patrick has been time and time again the true force of the Denver Broncos offense, and I think it's time we put some respect on his name. He scored, let's do the math here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times he's gotten in the end zone this year. He has been a little bit touchdown dependent, which is always a struggle, but he's always been involved, right? You look at games where he's getting 8+ targets, the reception totals are there, the yardage is there with multiple games over 100 yards receiving. And I think my question long term, this is kind of a dynasty question, I think, more than anything, is where does Tim Patrick slide into the Denver Broncos long term? With Courtland Sutton coming back from his ACL injury at the start of next year, he should be good to go. I think a lot of people have forgotten about Courtland Sutton because he was supposed to be incredible for Denver this year. So we're going to get Courtland Sutton, a second year of Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, and another year of KJ Hamler. Where does this leave this group of wide receivers going forward? I'm not entirely sure and trying to figure out where Tim Patrick slides into that. has been a bit of a challenge for me, but I think just talking about rest of season this year, he's got 3 games: Buffalo, the Chargers, and the Raiders. Those are 3 really good matchups, and this is a guy who has been able to get into the end zone multiple times this year. Like I said, he has 3 games of over 100 yards receiving, 8+ targets almost consistently. And he's also just always on the field, right? He is the Denver Broncos offense through the air. And with that being said, I really like Tim Patrick as a flex play moving forward. Just understanding where he is in terms of like the grand scheme of wide receivers, right? If you do need that spot start, Tim Patrick's a guy. If you guys remember last year, Brashad Perriman was winning people, myself included, championships because he got hot at the right time. I think we could see that with Tim Patrick here. We saw that with Deebo Samuel last year as well. He was another guy who I played week 17. And I think that Tim Patrick could be this year's version of a wide receiver league winner. He's not well rostered. He's rostered in about 43% of leagues on Sleeper right now. And I just think that he's shown enough to where you can put him in your starting lineup and feel pretty confident about him. I don't think he's ever really going to tank for you. If you just go through his game logs pretty consistently, he's in that double-digit scoring. Like, let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 games. So 7 games in double figures. Missed 1 game. He didn't play in week 8 versus the Chargers. Played dud versus the Broncos. Versus the Saints. But that was the Kendall Hinton game. And you just look at what he's done this season. He has been so consistent, so honestly great, despite the bad quarterback play in Denver. So I guess Tim Patrick is a guy who I'm really keeping my eye on if I need that spot start in a championship. If I need a swing for the fences play in my playoffs, Tim Patrick's a guy who I'm definitely looking at. You get Buffalo, the Chargers, and the Raiders to close out his schedule. That's all I have for this game. Let's go to the next one. And the next one that I got things to say about is going to be the Houston Texans and the Chicago Bears. I was completely right about Deshaun Watson in this game. He was absolutely unplayable. I believe he finished with around 14 fantasy points, and 14 fantasy points in the grand scheme isn't terrible, but just knowing what you're going up against with other quarterbacks who are going to put up, anywhere between 18, 25, you're definitely losing your matchup if you were relying on Deshaun Watson this week. It's just one of those things where with no Brandon Cooks, no Will Fuller, obviously DeAndre Hopkins is gone as well. I mean, we were looking at Deshaun Watson here with no weapons whatsoever, and Deshaun Watson is great. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks, but even Deshaun Watson can't be Superman on a team with 0 weapons on it. So seeing Watson struggle was not surprising. Seeing the Bears defense play lights out was not surprising. And then this was something that I absolutely predicted. I don't think it could be a long-term thing. Brandon Cooks should be back in the field next week, and Watson should be back in your lineup. So this is really just a 1-week blip for the Houston Texans. But let's talk about the Bears. I got 2 things that I want to bring up here. The first, let's start off with David Montgomery. David Montgomery is about to catch fire, and I'm fucking terrified. And the reason I'm fucking terrified is because I'm going to end up facing David Montgomery in the Fantasy Football Championship, Week 16 and 17. Yes, I play in a 17 championship. Judge me. I don't care. I know it's bullshit. Anyway, I think I've been banging the drum on David Montgomery now for the past 5 weeks, I think. His schedule is a green light. It is a green fucking light. It's one of those things like, right, you're cruising down the interstate, and, maybe it's just like this long road through the country where, your speed limits are 70, right, and you're pushing 80, and there, for whatever reason, there's these occasional stoplights throughout your journey. His light is green, and you are gunning that motherfucker all the way through. It is Minnesota, Jacksonville, Green Bay to round out the rest of the season. Ripped off an 80-yard touchdown on the first play against the Texans. Balled out the week before that versus Detroit. Balled out against Green Bay in Week 12. He is so damn... I was going to say so damn good, but that's also so damn wrong, too, right? Like, he's just getting hot at the right time. And David Montgomery's always been this talented running back. He just hasn't been able to put it together. But the volume and the opportunity has always been there. And it's been one of the reasons why I've loved David Montgomery, honestly, all season long. You guys can go back to my take on Montgomery pre-draft. And I was saying he's a guy that you need to target in that 6th, 7th round range because he's going to be a guy who consistently gets the ball, has the workload and the opportunity to be productive. And that's exactly what David Montgomery has been up to this point. He's been a very consistent running back. Yes, it's been fringe consistency, but he's been consistent nonetheless. And now he's about to take off like a fucking rocket ship. He's already there. 3 straight games of 20-plus points in half-point formats, and it's only going to get better. David Montgomery at this point does not leave your starting lineup. He's currently the running back 7 in PPR formats. But that's not the only Chicago Bear that I want to talk about. And the other one who I want to talk about is my baby boy, Allen Robinson. Guys, the resurgence is here. And it's so funny, right? Because I was going to make a whole video talking about can you trust Allen Robinson in your fantasy football championship. But I was about to make that video with Nick Foles as the starter. And as soon as they made that switch back to Mitch Trubisky, I literally jumped out of my chair. I was so happy because I understand that Mitch Trubisky is a better quarterback in the NFL than Nick Foles. And I don't know how hot of a take that's going to be, but when you understand that what Mitch Trubisky adds to the Bears offense, even though it's so limited, just having that additional mobility, it's a way to help extend drives in a way that Nick Foles blatantly can't do. Also, you look at the fact that Allen Robinson is going to be Mitch Trubisky's number 1 target. With Nick Foles, Foles is a guy who's going to spread it around a little bit. You look at what some of the numbers that Allen Robinson had as terms as target. They weren't awful by any means. You know, they were still consistently in that 9-10 range. But there were games just with dips. You're looking at a 4-game target versus the Rams, 7 targets versus New Orleans. What's another good one? 9 targets versus the Titans and Minnesota. But since Mitch Trubisky has come in, 13 targets, 7 targets, 13 targets for Allen Robinson. He's just going to absolutely lock eyes with Robinson, and he's going to get him involved because the one thing Mitch Trubisky understands is, hey, you put the ball in your best player's hands, right, on offense. It doesn't matter how you do it. Might be a low throw to the ground, might be a bit over his head, and he has to make an extended grab. Just get the ball, force feed Allen Robinson. And it's going to work wonders for Robinson and honestly for Trubisky too as well. If you guys remember, Allen Robinson, I believe, was the number 2 NFL was the number 2 wide receivers in targets last year behind Michael Thomas's historic pace. But Allen Robinson was incredible, and we're seeing the numbers continue to go up for Robinson with Trubisky under center. And I'm really, really excited for Allen Robinson going forward. It's changed my tune on him entirely. I'm firing him up in every single league that I have him in, and I'm really excited about it going forward. So I think Allen Robinson, full confidence in him, full confidence in David Montgomery, and the Bears' schedule, again, for the umpteenth time throughout the rest of the year is chef kiss. It's great. It's so damn good. Up next, let's go through the Cowboys and the Bengals. I only have a few notes here, and honestly, it's kind of self-explanatory. First one, Amari Cooper in your lineup. Totally fine with it. There were some concerns early on with Andy Dalton, but what we've seen from Cooper with Dalton, it's kind of the AJ Green treatment, and I talked about this on the live stream on Sunday morning. Amari Cooper is being treated the same way that AJ Green was treated by Andy Dalton, and that was, I'm just going to gun it to my number 1 target. Very similar to what we just talked about with Mitch Trubisky and Allen Robinson. Dalton's going to lock on to that number 1 option, and that number 1 option is Amari Cooper. You look at some of the targets, 8, 9, 7, and then also just understanding that Amari Cooper is a better wide receiver than me and a lot of people give him credit for. He's been very consistent. Double digits in the past 5 games. Even before that, 7 of his last 8 have been really good. And it's real, like it really is. I think the honest word is encouraging, right? The reason why I and many others have hated Amari Cooper is because the inconsistency has always been there throughout all of his career, essentially. You look even last year when he joined the Cowboys. He was, I believe, in double digits for 50% of his games, and outside of double digits for the other 50. Before that, 50% in the top 36, the other 50 outside the top 36. So he's always been this kind of unpredictable wide receiver. But what we've seen from Amari Cooper so far this year is consistency, and it's great. It's so damn good. Amari Cooper is currently the wide receiver 12 in PPR formats. His schedule gets a little bit difficult going forward the rest of the year with San Fran, Philadelphia, and the Giants. But honestly, he's getting the work. He's being productive to where I'm probably starting. Like Amari Cooper is I shouldn't even say probably. Amari Cooper is 95% of the time going to be in your starting lineups throughout the rest of the fantasy football season. So Amari Cooper is a safe play. He's great, and he's really showing why he was paid so much money this offseason. All right, up next for the Cowboys, I want to talk about Zeke Elliott, and it's time to face the music, and I'm kind of talking to myself here as well. Ezekiel Elliott is in a goddamn timeshare, and that's something that we as fantasy managers have to admit. It is bizarre. You look at Zeke's snap share during the first 5 weeks. 88, 89, 76, 82. So that screams workhorse, right? That is a workhorse running back. But since then, he's averaging about 65% of the snaps. I mean, you are talking about a 15 to 20% decrease in playing time for Zeke. And it shows. I think the thing that's actually really interesting is despite that, he's still getting 18 carries a game, essentially. 19 carries, 18, 21, 10, 18. And then this week was 12 on 60% of the snaps. But here's why this matters. Because Zeke, for how great he is, Zeke, large in part, is a volume guy. It's been the thing that has been constant throughout his career. Zeke Elliott gets the ball 25 times a game, and those touches are going to equate to fantasy points because it's volume. But if he's not reaching that full potential, and he's not being involved in the passing game, and Tony Pollard is coming in on third downs, you look at Pollard's snap percentages, they've gone up as well. It is a bit concerning. With Zeke playing on 60% of the snaps and not seeing the receiving work that we're used to seeing from him, what is he for fantasy football on a team, on an offensive line that is not as good as it once was? So making this adjustment on Zeke is going to take some time to get used to, but it's currently where we're at. Is Zeke a must-start at this point? Well, let's see. He's currently running back 8 in PPR formats, but he's killed you the majority of the season. If you guys look at his numbers with Dak Prescott and without, it's a world of difference. It is a world of difference. Just to give you an idea, I'm ballparking these numbers. I'm just eyeing them up. In the first 5 games, this was remember Dak got hurt week 5, but it was in the third quarter, and we can talk about that another time. But still, he was productive still throughout the game. So for the first 5 weeks, Zeke was averaging roughly 18 to 20 points a game. You look at 26, 17, 14, 15, 23. So we'll comfortably say 17 points per game. But since then, he has hit over 17 points per game one time, has been in double digits. Besides hitting the over on 17 once, he's been in double digits besides that one other time 2 weeks ago versus Baltimore. And other than that, he's fucking killed you. He has destroyed you. 7.8, 7.9, 6, 5.6, 1.4, 6.9, or 6.9. Are we starting Zeke in our championships against San Fran, against Philadelphia, against the Giants? I don't know. I think we're at this point where we need to see what we have in Zeke going forward, but I don't have confidence starting him. I don't think anybody really should. He hasn't done it throughout the majority of the year without Dak Prescott. And if you want to try and put your faith in Zeke, that number 3 guy that you drafted overall, go ahead. But at this point, I'm scared shitless to play Zeke. And we need to, I think, collectively get to that point. And for me, it was actually diving into the numbers that got me there. looking at the decrease in snaps, the uptick in usage for Tony Pollard, the lack of receiving work, this is a very different Ezekiel Elliott that we are used to. And I'm pretty much going to change my tune on him throughout the course of the playoffs, where I need to start guys who can help me win. And at this point, I don't think Zeke Elliott can help me win a fantasy championship. And that fucking sucks. And then lastly, we're going to jump over to the Bengals side of things right now. And very simply, no one's playable. No one is playable for the Cincinnati Bengals. Gio Bernard had a fumble and was benched the rest of the game. Gio Bernard also has not been good in several weeks. T. Higgins, 8 targets, 5 receptions, only 49 yards. Not good enough to help you. Tyler Boyd, 9 targets, 5 receptions, 43 yards. Not good enough to help you. We're just at a point. This Bengals offense is fucking atrocious. Their defense is also bleh. Like, they just can't put together any level of... honestly, I'm going to use the word confidence again. They can't give you any level of confidence to start anybody on this team going forward. It's just not going to happen. I understand the targets are there. And targets are one thing. Understanding the value of the targets is the other, and who and where they're coming from. Between Brandon Allen, Ryan Finley, no thanks. Don't put yourself in that position. I'm actually, honestly droppable. Like, straight up droppable. The only thing I'm going to say, I'm going to bring up Joe Mixon, and the reason why I don't think Joe Mixon plays again this season. We've seen this before where guys just shut it down. And for me, what is the purpose of playing Joe Mixon rest of year? We have 3 weeks left. You're 2-10-1. You just paid Mixon a shit ton of money this offseason. They have no reason to try and bring him back. Not one. So I think Mixon shut down rest of season. If Mixon is active, I think that becomes a very interesting discussion. They have Pittsburgh, Houston, and Baltimore rest of season. I'd only feel comfortable starting him versus Houston, and that's it. And even then, who knows? But as of this moment, I'm not starting anybody on the Cincinnati Bengals rest of season. It's just not worth it. Don't even try. Don't bother. It's going to hurt you more than it's going to help you, and you really are swinging for the fences if you put yourself in that position. Our next game is going to be the Tennessee Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Some quick takeaways here. The Tana Henry stack, I rave about this every single week. It's broken. It's so damn good. Just to kind of go through it one more time. When you stack Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry, it doesn't matter how the game script goes. You are going to be okay. If they're up by 30, Derrick Henry's going to rush for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. If they're down by 30, Ryan Tannehill's throwing for 304 TDs. It's broken. It's matchup proof. Derrick Henry had 35 points. Ryan Tannehill had 16. And this is just one of those things where let's just run the math on this, okay? And here's why I think this is actually so important. Because when you have 35 points, I'm going to jot this down myself so I can see this visually. 35, 16, that's 51. So between those two positions, you get 51 points automatically. You divide that by 2, it's 25 apiece. And 25 apiece from your quarterback and your running back is going to put you in such a great position for your team the rest of the rest of the week, right? Because the way that I've talked about this is you need to, on average, this is standard, so like the numbers are inflated, but you can the thought process remains the same. If you need 110 points to win your week, just on average 110, and you get 51 from 2 positions, congratulations, you now have 7 other players that need to put up 60. And if those 7 guys put up 60, which they should with ease, that's a little under, I believe that's what? Let's do math real quick. That's about 8.2. That's about 8.2 points per position. Not your wide receivers, you still have 2 of those. You still have 1 running back, you have a flex, you have a tight end, right? The numbers just add up to where if you need 110 to win, you knock out damn near 50% of that with 2 players, you are balling the rest of the way. This stack is broken. It is my new favorite fantasy football strategy. I need to make a whole video dedicated just upon it. It's on the list for 21 days of content. or even something that we discussed in the offseason. I love this stack so damn much. The next player I want to talk about is AJ fucking Brown. Because, listen. You listen. I'm going to say this right to the camera. Right to the camera. AJ Brown is the second best wide receiver in the NFL behind Devontae Adams. And honestly, I really don't think it's close. Right? Today on the timeline, PFF was debating AJ Brown or DK Metcalf, and I had this discussion with a friend earlier this week. It might have even been yesterday. We were talking about AJ Brown and DK, and it basically came down to AJ Brown does everything that DK Metcalf does, but better, right? Yes, DK is an athletic force just purely based on size and strength, right? I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of the two side by side. DK may have 3 inches on AJ Brown, but they are built the exact same. They are both freight trains of human beings, right? But the thing that AJ Brown has different than, the difference between the two, AJ Brown has the same strength as DK Metcalf, doesn't have the same size, but the same athletic profile. He's faster than DK Metcalf. He is a more complete athlete than DK, and he's just a better football player than DK, right? If you need a jump ball scenario, give me DK, right? But if you're talking pound for pound wide receiver and all the traits and the characteristics that go into that, it is AJ Brown and it is nobody else. You can put AJ Brown on the outside. You can run AJ Brown for slants and he can take it 60, 80 yards to the house. Honestly, you can put AJ Brown in jump ball scenarios, right? Those toe tap grabs, AJ Brown, DK can do that as well. We saw both of them actually get into the end zone that way. It's just one of those things where I feel like everything that DK does, AJ does better. And that's the reason why AJ Brown went higher in the draft comparatively to the two. I want to pull up my conversation just to make sure that I'm not saying that I'm not missing anything here. Okay, yeah. So this is I'm gonna read you how the conversation went. I got the text that says every week AJ Brown one-ups himself. He's better than DK. He just isn't on the Seahawks, which is also a very valid point because of the national attention that the Seahawks get. And I put he's so much better than DK. AJ is DK if DK had super speed. To which my friend responded with AJ is DK if DK had hands and fluidity. Brown just looks so much smoother. And then I also added Brown has one play explosion in that kind of similar vein that I was talking about, being able to take a 60-yard screen pass to the house. I don't think that DK has game-breaking ability, right? I think game-breaking ability and big play ability are two very different things. DK is going to be able to, like I said, jump ball into the end zone. Like, DK is going to come down with that, and that's big play, right? But game-breaking, like demoralizing ability, AJ Brown has that. And I'm not saying that DK doesn't, but AJ Brown just has more of it. Go watch AJ Brown highlights, see the things that he does on a week in, week out basis, and there's just no way that he can be guarded by anybody. And also the volume is there. That the volume's there this year that it wasn't in years past. The efficiency is still hyper, but he's still hyper efficient in every single category, and he's just a touchdown machine. AJ Brown is so fucking good, and the fact that I've seen multiple analysts tweet out that people ask if they need to sit or start AJ Brown every week feels irresponsible. What are we doing? What the fuck are we? AJ Brown does not leave your fucking lineup. Huh? We knew this last year. We knew this last year that AJ Brown doesn't leave your lineup. So the thought of benching him now? What? What are we doing? What are we doing? That's all I have to say about that. And then lastly, for the Jags, it's still James Robinson and nobody else. I say this every single week. James Robinson is the fastest undrafted rookie to ever rush for 1,000 yards. So shout the fuck out to him. Where J-Rob goes in redraft next year is going to be a really fascinating conversation, and I'm curious to see where that goes. I'm not willing to make a stance on that just yet, but just understand James Robinson, rest of season, things get a little bit complicated here between Baltimore, Chicago, and Indianapolis. Those are 3 tough matchups, and what we decide to do with James Robinson is going to be very interesting. Gardner Minshew was actually just announced today to be the starting quarterback for the Jags rest of season. All right, let's go to our next game. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Miami Dolphins, which turned out to be a really fun game. It was one of the games that I had on the big screen. As I've talked about before, my setup is usually red zone on one screen, a game going on another, and my game of choice was the Chiefs and the Dolphins. Few things that I want to talk about. Number one, is it Clyde Edwards-Helaire time? I don't know. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I actually don't have the snap counts for this game. That's interesting. Okay, I don't have the snap counts on Clyde. I have the snap counts on Lev, which is the more important thing. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 16 carries and 6 targets. So he had 22 opportunities. Le'Veon Bell only had 5. He had 2 carries and 3 targets. Le'Veon Bell played 17% of the snaps. Darrell Williams did not see a single snap this game. Is it Clyde Edwards-Helaire time? That's the question that I'm really asking myself. He's now getting more involved. It really is a one-game sample size that we're going off of, so I'm not sure. But if that is the case, that means that we're going to have to reestablish our expectations for Clyde going forward. I personally think this was a one-game blip. You look to see at the way that the Dolphins' defense was playing, some of the struggles that the Chiefs had. Patrick Mahomes had 3 turnovers, 3 interceptions. I feel like this was a product of the game script to keep Clyde out there. This was a game where the Chiefs were ahead. They had to run the ball. They were also playing from behind at one point. It was a very up and down game for Kansas City, and I think that led to Clyde being on the field for the long term. What happens going forward? I'm not sure. I'm going to cross that bridge when we get to it this week, but they do play New Orleans, I believe. They are at New Orleans. It's one of the toughest matchups that they'll have this season. What we do with Clyde remains to be seen, but I'm still probably tempering my expectations. I'm just trying to figure out what to make of this game with Clyde, and I'm not entirely sure. Just something to note that Clyde played. We'll ballpark and we'll say 70%. Yep, there it popped up. 75% of the snaps by Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Le'Veon Bell had 17. Just something to kind of keep in the back of your head. Actually, also added to that, Lev tweeted after the game. He said, "I'm so confused." He said something along the lines of, "I'm so confused." LOL. Trying to figure out why he himself didn't see a whole lot of game action here. So who knows? Like I said, might be a product of how the game went. Or it could be a thing going forward, trying to make a decision based off of one game like this is one of the things that's going to give fantasy managers hell for Week 15. Let's see. Mahomes, Kelsey, and Tyreek Hill are ungodly. And I know that's not a new take, right? I understand that's not a new take to have. But I've always been a guy who I recognize when important things are happening in sports, and I jump on it. I was like this with the Heat, with the Big Three Heat. I was like this with the Golden State Warriors. It's just once we're in the middle of greatness and what we're seeing, I just tend to latch onto it. And what the Chiefs have in Mahomes, Tyreek, and Kelsey, it's blatantly something I don't think we'll ever see again. The best quarterback ever, with the fastest wide receiver, and not only the fastest wide receiver ever, but the most talented fastest wide receiver ever, and just a Greek god. Like, they call him Zeus for a reason. Travis Kelce, who at this point I'm willing to say best tight end ever. It's unbelievable. Like, Travis Kelce leads the NFL in yards, and he is a fucking tight end. It doesn't make sense. It shouldn't make sense, and I think that's why I'm just so amazed by it. To have this collection of talent, like, guys, Patrick Mahomes had 3 fucking interceptions this game, and they were up by 14 with 5 minutes left. And, like, Miami was scrambling, trying to play from behind. Tyreek Hill has another incredible game of 20-plus points. Travis Kelce is dominating this season in ways that we've never seen a tight end dominate. Patrick Mahomes is still unbelievable. I'm just in awe. I'm like, again, I know this is supposed to be a takeaways video, and what I'm saying here is so basic, but I just want to just take a moment to really appreciate what the Chiefs are doing. They're 12-1, and they are the quietest 12-1 team in NFL history. And the fact that we are at this point with Mahomes, I think specifically, where we aren't talking about the fact that he's 12-1. We aren't talking about the fact that what's his stats right now? We aren't talking about the fact that, let's see, Patrick Mahomes stats. I need my game log, or my career, my year by year. We aren't talking about the fact that he already has 4,200 yards with 3 weeks left. We aren't talking about the fact that he has 33 touchdowns. We aren't talking about the fact that he only has 5 interceptions. Like, we're giving him the LeBron treatment, and it's fucking year 3. It's technically year 4, but it's year 3 because they didn't play in his rookie year. Like, it is year 3 for Patrick Mahomes, and he's already getting the LeBron treatment where we expect this from him every single week, and the weeks pass by, and they're just lost with time. It's truly special. It's truly is. All right, going over to the Dolphins. Devontae Parker left the game in the first quarter with a leg injury. He did not return. Miami's defense, let's talk about that real quick. I know we don't talk about defenses a whole lot. They're crazy good. Xavier Howard now has 5 straight games with an interception, I believe. He's been fantastic all season long. They force a ton of turnovers. They get to the quarterback. And this defense, they have the number 2 defense on the year for fantasy. I don't think a whole lot of people actually realize that. They play in a division with the bad Jets, with the bad Patriots. The Bills obviously are better. But man, they definitely just have opportunities here to continue to improve. And the way that Brian Flores really has coached this team overall, they're 8-5, has been super impressive. And I think the Dolphins are a defense to really consider owning next year in Dynasty. Pick them up, stash them, right? If you play with defenses in Dynasty like I do. It's wild what the Dolphins are doing defensively. Let's see. Oh, and we also have to talk about Mike Gesicki. Do I have an update? There we go. Okay. So Mike Gesicki has balled out the past 3 games. 10.5, 19.3, and 21. He left the game in the fourth quarter with a shoulder injury. He's expected to miss next week's game. But I want to talk about this with Gesicki. Tua is targeting Mike Gesicki in the end zone. He's targeting tight ends in the end zone. The broadcast pointed this out multiple times, and it just continued to happen, and it's continued to happen over the course of the past few weeks. When they get in those goal-to-goal opportunities, Tua's first read is to Mike Gesicki. It is to Adam Shaheen. They have another tight end who I'm thinking of too as well, Smythe. It's a trend. It's certainly that. It is certainly a trend. That's something to keep an eye on. And we might finally see the resurgence of Mike Gesicki that we all thought we were going to get this season. The same friend that I referenced earlier regarding AJ Brown, he's a Dolphins fan, and we were talking about, is Mike Gesicki actually good? And I was like, I don't really see it. And then Mike Gesicki went crazy in this game, and it really is just part of the trends of learning what new quarterbacks are going to do. And as far as Tua goes, Tua's a guy that, hey, when it comes to 1st and 10 at the 10-yard line, 1st and goal, I'm going tight end. So just something to note. Tua also played great in this game. 48 attempts, 28 completions, 316 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Absolutely balled out. Also had a rushing touchdown as well. And I've been really impressed with what Tua has done this year, honestly. I wasn't entirely sure how great he would come in and be. But Tua is definitely stringing together some games. No two ways about that. Gets New England next week, then the Raiders, and then the Bills. So it's a pretty good schedule to round out the rest of the season. And it'll be exciting to see what Tua does. The unfortunate scenario here for them is this team just has no weapons. They have no weapons for Tua. With Parker being in and out of the lineup due to injuries, they are like DeAndre Washington is their 3rd string running back, or 4th string running back, who I'm not even going to talk about. They had Myles Gaskin COVID, Matt Breida COVID, Selvin Ahmed out with shoulder injury, right? They're just decimated at the running back position. Wide receivers, I was talking about this with my friend. Parker in and out of the lineup with injuries. Albert Wilson opted out due to COVID. Preston Williams is out with that ankle injury. Like, Lynn Bowden and Jakeem Grant are the number one and number two options on this pass-catching team as of now, and especially with Mike Gesicki leaving with that injury. So I do want to bring up Lynn Bowden real quick. He played 71% of snaps, had 9 targets, this week, 7 receptions for 82 yards. He's led the Dolphins the past 2 weeks in snaps from the slot. I believe that was according to Mike Clay of ESPN. So just something to keep an eye on. I love Lynn Bowden from Kentucky. Just a pure athlete. Plays running back, wide receiver, and quarterback. A guy who I love. So to see him have success here right now and has the opportunity to really make an impact the final few weeks of the season, I think he can cement himself in some fashion for the Dolphins going forward. All right, let's go to the next game here. The Cardinals and the Giants, not a whole lot that I want to add here, to be honest. One, Kyler Murray ran again, and that's great for fantasy, right? The one reason why the Cardinals offense stalled is because Kyler stopped running because he was scared to get hit. Let's call it what it was. But in this game, comes back. We see 47 rushing yards, so that's nice. That's a nice little bounce back number after going 15, 30, and 15. So to see that number go back up to 47 is nice. Maybe let's get it a little bit higher, but as of now, here for it. And it just helps his offense. Like, they need Kyler to be multidimensional if they want to be successful. Like, it basically just comes down to that. Kenyon Drake is great. Inefficient, but great. The workload is still there. 23 carries, 80 yards, a touchdown. Unfortunately, the receiving work is still lacking, and so he has become a one-dimensional running back at this current moment in time. But to see Kenyon Drake continue to get it done, continue to get in the end zone, this is the Kenyon Drake that we all expected him to be when we drafted him in the second round of our fantasy drafts. So hopefully he can keep this momentum going throughout the rest of the fantasy football playoffs. Scheduled a bit tough with Philadelphia and then San Fran, and then the Rams close out the season. Welcome back, DeAndre Hopkins. We missed you. To see him come back with 11 targets, 9 receptions, and 136 receiving yards was nice. After the 2 string of down games that he had in week 11 and 12, to see him put back-to-back great games together in 13 and 14 is nice to see. DeAndre Hopkins doesn't leave your lineup. You guys know that. And then for the Giants, Daniel Jones is still hurt. No two ways about that. You aren't playing any of the Giants' pass catchers because you just can't. They aren't reliable. And again, Wayne Gallman is the only Giant you should start. Wayne Gallman, despite the fact that he did not get in the end zone and he did not have 100 yards rushing, still finished with 8.8 fantasy points in half-point formats. Not what we are accustomed to seeing after 6 straight games of double-digit scoring, but the shoe was about to drop eventually, and this just happened to be the game. Gets Cleveland, Baltimore, and Dallas rest of season. Not a great schedule, but there are definitely a few winnable matchups for him there. I need to find a better way to transition from graphic to graphic. I'll work on that next episode. Anyways, let's go to the Vikings and the Buccaneers. This was the shoe drop game for Kirk Cousins. I talked about this on Sunday. Kirk Cousins had been red hot going into this week, and I just felt like he was due for a bleh game, and we got that. This was a struggle fest, actually, for both sides. So the shoe dropped for Kirk Cousins, and as a result, Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen were both impacted. Both those guys busted for you this week, and that really is disappointing because of the way that the Buccaneers' pass defense has played as of late. It had not been good, and I thought that those two guys definitely had an opportunity to go off. They did not. Dalvin Cook is great. We know this. But let's talk about the Bucs real quick. About 45 minutes before kickoff. Actually, it would have been an hour and a half before kickoff. So an hour before kickoff, Leonard Fournette was a healthy scratch. And this really did throw a big wrench into my game plans for fantasy this week. I was supposed to start DeAndre Swift against Green Bay. And as soon as Leonard Fournette was inactive, I had to make that pivot to Ronald Jones. I've talked about this before. Ronald Jones is a great running back. He's been great all season long, but for whatever reason, when Fournette's on the field, the Bucs just have this tendency to roll the dice on whoever's out there, and it makes things really complicated for us as fantasy owners. So with no Leonard Fournette as a healthy scratch, Ronald Jones became an automatic must-start in this game, and he proved it. He played really well. 18 carries, 80 yards, a touchdown. Got it done for you in that way. Obviously, love seeing him get in the end zone, and he actually had the opportunity to break off another big run towards the end of the game. Unfortunately, got tackled just as he was about to break loose. But it is what it is, and just to see Ronald Jones become the guy again gives me a lot of confidence going forward in him. His rest of the season schedule is great. It's Atlanta, Detroit, Atlanta again. And hopefully, I love Leonard Fournette. His jersey's hanging up in my closet right over there. But, Bruce Arians, if you want to bench Fournette again and just give Ronald Jones the ball 20 times, I am all for it. If that is the case, Ronald Jones becomes a smash play every single week rest of season. But we need to talk about this past game for the Buccaneers. I'm saying it. I tried to cling on. I felt like the logic was there. But I'm at the point now where I can confidently say Tom Brady is washed. Tom Brady does not look good. Tom Brady is overthrowing guys, missing throws left, right, and center. And honestly, I don't know how much confidence I have in Tom Brady, despite that incredible schedule that we've all hyped up, right? He's missed. He overthrew Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin ended the game with 3 targets. Mike Evans only had 5 targets. Antonio Brown had 5 targets. Scotty Miller gets a beautiful 48-yard deep ball. I just don't know what to make of this Buccaneers pass catcher and just this passing game for Tampa Bay right now. We know they have the names. We know they have the talent. But do they have the quarterback to make the talent go? At this point right now, I say no. I'm really scared to start Antonio Brown. I'm really scared to start Mike Evans. I'm really scared to start Chris Godwin going forward, despite the fact that their matchups are great. But I just don't know how much I trust Tom Brady going forward in these games. We'll see where I'm at later in the week, but again, these are just kind of like my instant reactions, and maybe I'll cool off by the time next week rolls around. But as of now, I have a lot of real concerns about this Buccaneers offense moving forward because Brady just does not have it anymore. All right. The Colts and the Raiders. Let's start with T.Y. Hilton, right? And T.Y. Hilton has become a hot topic across fantasy football. 3 straight weeks of getting it done. Gets Houston again this week, as the footballers so delightfully called him now T.Y. Houston because he carves up the Texans. Man, what a world for T.Y. 81 receiving yards, 110, 86, 1 touchdown, 2. He's revitalized. He is alive. And this is great. Number 1 for Phillip Rivers, who's a guy who I've been talking about a lot over the course of the past few weeks, talking about him as a streaming option going forward through the rest of the fantasy football playoffs. So he boosts up Phillip Rivers, helps this Colts pass game, almost aids up Michael Pittman as well. And T.Y. Hilton versus Houston next week becomes real interesting. That's all I'm going to say. Just becomes real interesting. I just don't know if you can start him. Like, how confident are you in T.Y. Hilton in your fantasy football playoff? How confident are you? Maybe even in your championship. If you have a Week 15 championship. If you need to swing for the fences play, I think that's where I really like T.Y. Hilton, though, versus Houston. More on that later in the week. I just need to tip my cap to T.Y. for coming on strong and finally showing up to 2020. Because football's a lot more fun when T.Y. Hilton is playing well. Also, speaking of hat tips, Jonathan freaking Taylor. Guys, the breakout is here. It is Jonathan Taylor time. And it makes me so happy. Because we're getting back to where we were early in the year. And if you guys remember, Early in the year, I was saying you have to play Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor at that current moment in time was running back 13. And I'm like, guys, he's getting it done. He just isn't getting the full opportunity. Well, guess what? He got the full opportunity this week, and he basically turned in a 30-point performance. He was great. 150 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, was fantastic. 20 carries, back-to-back games, averaging over 7 yards a carry. Jonathan Taylor is here. He looks great. R.I.P. Nyheim Hines. R.I.P. Jordan Wilkins. Jonathan Taylor, the crown is yours. Also, we need to talk about December Phillip Rivers again. The Colts win, and Phillip Rivers is incredible in December. I've talked about this on Sunday morning. The reason why I like Phillip Rivers as a streaming option is, one, because the schedule's nice, but then number 2, Phillip Rivers in December is otherworldly. Just to pull up those numbers yet again. Just to pull up those numbers yet again. He has... Why is my screen going crazy now? All right. Phillip Rivers has played 66 games in December. He is 43-23, easily his best month. He has over 16,000 passing yards. Has 110 touchdowns and 54 interceptions. By far his most touchdowns by 7, and his second highest month in interceptions. But when you're throwing 110 touchdowns, doesn't matter. Phillip Rivers just lights the game on fire in December. It's one of my favorite It's honestly one of my favorite NFL stats of all time. Maybe my favorite sports stats of all time. So to see Phillip Rivers ball out right now and have this team at 9-4, hunting and gunning for an AFC South title, I'm real interested in Phillip Rivers as streaming options throughout the rest of the fantasy football season. But the big story of this game was Josh Jacobs. And Josh Jacobs was questionable heading into this game with an ankle injury. And just before the game, he tweeted out, "Hey, I'm not playing." And he posted this on Instagram. And all of a sudden, we're like, well, what the fuck, right? You're listed as active. Are you just trying to get ahead of what we saw from Clyde Edwards-Helaire? He was active, but he didn't play a snap, and he didn't want fantasy owners mad at him. He tweeted out, he even sent out a message that said fantasy owners are hot right now. So he throws that little curveball, and we're all freaking out now on the timeline. The timeline is on fire. I'm texting people I know who are starting Josh Jacobs, sending him the post, trying to figure out what to do, and then it just comes out from Schefter, hey, he's on the field, he's practicing, he's warming up. But it didn't matter because Josh Jacobs did nothing for you this game. 13 carries, 49 yards. But I just want to say a personal fuck you to Josh Jacobs for that. It put all of us in a weird situation. We were trying to figure out if he was trolling or not. Turns out he was. But there was a brief 30 minutes where I was on the phone with multiple Josh Jacobs owners trying to figure out what they need to do. If they should start him, if they should sit him, who they should pivot towards instead. It was not fun. It was not ideal. So, Josh Jacobs, I'm not too happy with you this week. But let's go over to another game here real quick. That's all I got here. Let's talk about the Jets and the Seahawks. The Jets, honestly, are the ultimate get-right game. We know that Seattle was struggling going into it, and they just throttled New York by a final score of 40-3. Russell Wilson looked great. Chris Carson looked great. DK Metcalf looked great. But big takeaway here is Tyler Lockett, who yet again disappointed. The Tyler Lockett disappointment train continues to roll on. He's had 4 good games. Maybe a little bit more than that. We'll say he's had 4. He's had 4 good games all season long, and anything besides that has been very disappointing. The yardage isn't there. The targets are there, but not great targets. And then also he's just not getting into the end zone, and that's going to obviously hurt him. His rest of the season schedule is Washington, LA Rams, and San Fran. I don't think you played. As of this point, I don't think you play Tyler Lockett rest of season. He's done more harm than good, and if you miss out on the big Tyler Lockett game, so be it. So be it. It is what it is. But going back to Tyler Lockett at this point feels like going back to the ex that's so toxic, right? You just remember all the good memories and all the things that they have done for you, but what have you done for me lately? And Tyler Lockett lately has been atrocious. And for that reason, I'm pulling him from my lineups probably for the rest of the season. He is, like, those 3 matchups are all brutal for him. Up next, the Packers and the Lions. A few things here. Number one, Devontae Adams is wide receiver 1 until proven otherwise. Unbelievable season from him so far. Probably one of my favorite wide receivers in the NFL. He's great. Targets, yardage, and touchdowns. He is incredible. But let's talk about Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones. It's very well documented on this channel that I traded Aaron Jones immediately after the blow-up game. I believe I traded Aaron Jones in Week 3. He had the 43-point performance in Week 2 versus Detroit. And since then, has gone like this. It has not been great. He's been David Johnson and David Montgomery levels of steady, so he hasn't been awful. But even just looking at what's going on, the carries have dipped. The receiving work has dipped. The snap percentages have dipped. Jamal Williams being more and more involved, taking care of, honestly, just more work in those aspects. This is always the issue with Aaron Jones. Matt LaFleur hates Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is great. Aaron Jones also had the calf injury. We don't know how much that's playing into a factor. But something's wrong with Aaron Jones, and honestly, my sneaky conspiracy theory is that they are limiting Aaron Jones' work so that they have to pay him less this offseason. It is a contract year for Aaron Jones. I don't know how much of a factor that's playing into it, but I feel like that is a very sneaky scenario, that to try and drive the cost down on Aaron Jones, they're trying to take away some of his work. But then the other aspect, honestly, is that, this is the team where Aaron Rodgers has 39 touchdowns on the year, and they don't need to run the ball because Rodgers is fucking cooking, right? Robert Tonyan is a new addition that takes away from Aaron Jones's receiving work. There's a well-documented correlation between running back work and tight end work, and when you have a tight end, you utilize the running back less. So with the usage of Robert Tonyan, the increase of work for Jamal Williams, Aaron Rodgers playing out of his mind, that leaves Aaron Jones just kind of in the middle, just kind of chilling. And what value does Aaron Jones have in that role? Honestly, not a lot. It is what it is. So hopefully you were able to sell high early in the year and avoid the headache. But I know the frustration of the Aaron Jones experience. I was on that train for a year, and that's why I got off of it, because it's just not worth it. Yes, the boom games are certainly a thing, and they are certainly fun as fuck. But at this moment, it ain't great. It ain't great for Aaron Jones. Let's talk about DeAndre Swift real quick. Swift missed the last few games with a concussion, and then also was out with an illness. And here we are 3 weeks later. Swift, he only played 52% of the snaps, but if you watch this game, this was another game that I watched pretty closely on the big screen, just watching every snap. They really did ease him in. The first few series, it was Adrian Peterson, and they got Swift more involved, had a little bit of doses of Kerryon Johnson. I really do think that this was the formula for them trying to get Swift reacclimated with the game after missing 3 weeks. And Swift was great. Got in the end zone, had 5 targets, 4 receptions. So I'm here for DeAndre Swift for the rest of the season. Gets 10 to B. I was looking at Tennessee and Tampa Bay. Tennessee, Tampa Bay, and Minnesota to round out the year. That's a great schedule for him going forward. Matt Stafford is a warrior. Played through the game as much as he could. Did leave in the fourth quarter due to a rib injury. He's not been ruled out for this week's game versus Tennessee, but I would not be shocked if he did not play. Stafford just gets banged up and just powers through every single week, and I do think it'd be good enough for. I think it would be good for him if he did take a week off. It would suck for me as a TJ Hawkinson owner, who I guess we can talk about right now. Hawkinson is my favorite tight end, and I don't think that's really debatable at this point. Looking at what he's done, we are now 13 games. 11 out of 13, 60 yards or a touchdown. He is so damn consistent, so damn talented. The targets are there, the receptions are there, and he is great. He's one of my offseason targets for Dynasty because I can see the breakout has happened, and I don't think a whole lot of people have caught on to it yet. So the price right now for TJ Hawkinson is the lowest it's going to be, because next season he's going to take off like a fucking rocket. And I'm really excited about his outlook going forward. I think that's all I have for this game. Let's go to our takeaways for New Orleans and Philadelphia. Alright, few things here. Number one, officially, Taysom Hill is the future quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. I've been on this for a little bit now, but now I'm all the way there. You look at what Taysom Hill has done the past 2 weeks. I believe the number is 55. It's 55 completions, 75 attempts, 523 passing yards, a total of 523 passing yards and 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. So Taysom Hill can get it done through the air as well as on the ground. He's great. He's very good. This offense just rolls at a different pace when he is back there, and I really like his outlook rest of season. I'm sorry, long-term, should I say. Long-term, I like his outlook. I think Breeze comes back this week versus Kansas City, so the Taysom Hill train may come to an end, but I do like what the Saints have in Hill going forward. But the bigger story here from this game, the one that makes my heart so happy, it's Jalen Hurts time. It's Jalen Hurts season, and that makes me so happy in ways you guys cannot understand. Back in September of 2019, I said I would take Jalen Hurts number 1 overall, and it's not close. I said I wanted my Carolina Panthers to draft Jalen Hurts in the draft this season. Jalen Hurts is in college, and yes, I know win-loss stats for quarterbacks are a bit skewed and they aren't a full thing, right? I don't care. Jalen Hurts was, I think, 51-3 as a starter in college. Jalen Hurts is a goddamn winner. Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. He is a dual-threat quarterback. He's a guy who can get it done through the air, but also knows when to use his legs on the ground. And what he showed in this game was finally a sign of life from the Philadelphia Eagles. 30 attempts, 17 completions, 167 yards, threw a great touchdown while getting lit up to Alshon Jeffrey. Also had 18 rush attempts for 106 yards. Guys, Jalen Hurts is the next fantasy football cheat code. Get him while you can. It's Jalen Hurts time. Doug Peterson already announced that Jalen Hurts is going to be the starter for next week, and his rest of season schedule is Arizona, Dallas, and Washington. I'm ready to roll with Hurts, and the fact that I was able to get him in Dynasty just a few weeks ago and just kind of pick him up as a speculation ad is great, because I lucked into a quarterback that I can have for the foreseeable future. And I found a note, actually, too. I pulled this up. I was looking at some of my old Dynasty notes from this offseason, going back into May, and my target pick for my 4th-round pick was Jalen Hurts, and that was before I traded a package of picks to move up. But I just love that I was able to find that note where I was able to again see the vote of confidence that I had in Jalen Hurts as my number 1 quarterback that I was targeting for this draft class, and the fact that he finally gets his time and he balls out, woo! That made me so damn happy. And as a result, Miles Sanders balled out as well. You want to know why? Because when you add a quarterback who can run to a very talented backfield in Miles Sanders, right? Very talented running back, and you start using read options, and you start doing RPOs, it just opens up because defenses have to plan for both. And so if you want to hand off, pull it back and take it yourself, boom, 10-yard gain. Or you want to give it to the running back like Miles Sanders and he can rip off an 80-yard run. It makes it so damn hard for defenses to stop. And we saw the Eagles offense roll in a way that we haven't seen them roll in weeks. So I'm really excited for Miles Sanders going forward. I'm really excited for Jalen Hurts going forward. And we'll see what happens with Rager, Jeffrey, and Dallas Goedert as well. Travis Fulgham is also droppable. He played 11 snaps in this game, 18%. I mean, Fulgham's been dead for a while, but now it's officially time to cut ties on him. Up next, the Falcons and the Chargers. Not a whole lot of things to talk about here. Just a few. Number one, Mike Williams left this game with a back injury. I believe he did not return. So there's the first thing. We'll monitor the situation going forward the rest of the week. But then for the Falcons, Todd Gurley is finished. It's over. It's over. Drop him, drop him, drop him. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say drop Gurley. Bench him, bench him, bench him, okay? I'm looking at his game log right now. And actually, I'm going to pull this up for you guys. We're going to do some live editing here. Let's do some live editing here for Todd Gurley. All right. Capture. All right, I'm going to throw this in. Give me 1 second. TG. Let's go transform. Okay. So this is Todd Gurley. And what you can see from him is, first off, I want you to look at the snap percentage. He was consistently playing around 55% of the snaps throughout the first 9 weeks. And through that, he was consistently seeing about 16 carries a game. We'll say 17 as a ballpark. 17 carries a game. The touchdowns, whole lot of them, right? He was the guy getting the goal line work as well. And he looked okay. But you can kind of start to see this trend here in week 6, where the yards per carry takes a significant drop. And then we have the bye week, and it comes out that Gurley is injured. And I'm sorry, yeah, the bye week is Gurley gets a little bit banged up. We'll see what happens with the knee. Week 11, knee injury here flares up, and 36% of snaps, 8 carries, 26 yards. Then missed week 12 due to the knee. New Orleans again, 33% of the snaps, 8 carries, 16 yards. Then we get the Chargers, 33% of the snaps, 6 carries, 19 yards. It is not great for Todd Gurley now. The ship has sailed. That's why I think you can drop him. Like, one of the things I'm really considering, like with Tampa Bay, Kansas City, and Tampa Bay again, like, do we drop Gurley and kind of lay a landmine for our opponent to pick him up and start him? I think that's really interesting. But it's one of those things where you have to be right about Gurley if you want to do that, right? If you decide to drop Todd Gurley, you got to be sure. You got to be sure. But just looking at this, like, if he's now playing under 40% of the snaps, getting limited opportunity, like, that's not even a realm where you're going to feel confident starting him. You know what I mean? So, with that, like, Gurley for me is dead. Like, it doesn't make any sense trying to start him. On the other side, though, a guy who I love starting every single week is Austin Eckler. 9 targets again, 9 receptions, 15 carries, gets work left, right, and center. The only issue is the only issue is touchdowns, but it's fine because if he's gonna get 130 total yards every game, more than happy with that. So Austin Eckler is back and he is great, and I think that's all I have for this game. Where are we at? Okay, let's go to Washington and San Francisco. Big story here is Deebo Samuel left the game after the first play with a fucking hamstring injury, because of course he did. Deebo Samuel's droppable. To me, it's that simple. It's not worth the headache to keep a guy like that on your bench where you never know if you're actually going to start him. You never know if he's going to be healthy. You never know if that hamstring is going to flare up again. Cut bait with him. I'm done. Drop him. Move on. Brandon Ayuk is going to take off like a rocket ship rest of the season if Deebo Samuel continues to miss time. Alex Smith left this game with a calf injury. They tried to get it worked out. Was not able to return. Dwayne Haskins came in. And honestly, one more thing is Terry McLaurin has really slowed down the past 2 weeks. That's only been a 2-week thing, but gets Seattle, Carolina, and Philadelphia. Terry McLaurin, I'm not worried about him going forward. Just hit 1,000 yards receiving on the year. Pump the brakes about McLaurin. Just do it. He's great. He'll be okay. Not worried about it. And then finally, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Buffalo Bills. Take number 1. The Pittsburgh Steelers cannot run the football. Doesn't matter if it's James Conner. Doesn't matter if it's Jalen Samuels. Doesn't matter if it's Benny Snell. Doesn't matter if it's Anthony McFarland. They cannot run the football. They look terrible. Also, Deontay Johnson, my guy. What is going on here? The targets are there. Leads the league in drops, though. The production's kind of dipped. The Steelers have dropped back-to-back games, too. Like, Claypool had a dud game. I'm not too concerned about Claypool, but Claypool's always been this big play guy. Like, if you don't get the big play if you don't get the big play from Claypool, he's gonna bust for you. I've been saying this all season long. Juju got in the end zone this game, but even still, he's been a bit streaky after the turnaround, right? I'm going to try not to panic about the Steelers. I'm going to try not to. But understanding their schedule rest of season, it's Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Cleveland. It's not a great schedule by any means. Cleveland's defense is pretty good. We know that. Indianapolis' defense is pretty good. And the Bengals' defense is meh. I've talked about that before. They're very meh. So they are beatable, but we'll see how that looks. And just looking at this going forward, right? Like, are you confident in Juju? Are you confident starting him? Are you still confident in starting Deontay Johnson? Are you still confident in starting Chase Claypool? Like, this Steelers team is just hitting a stall wall right now. And trying to figure out what you want to do with them is going to be very challenging going forward. So brace yourself for that. Because at this current moment in time, I'm not sure. The issue is I feel the walls start to condense in fantasy right now. Like, think of all the players who are unplayable at this current moment of time. All of the Giants wide receivers are unplayable. The Jets, to a degree, are unplayable. Jets are unplayable. Giants are unplayable. Baltimore's damn near unplayable. Besides, we'll see what J.K. Dobbins does. And we know like Lamar's in your lineup and Mark Andrews is in your lineup. I think like Hollywood Brown died, right? The Buccaneers, your confidence with them is shaky. Jacksonville is unplayable. Dallas is meh outside of Amari Cooper right now. Cincinnati's unplayable. It's just Denver's unplayable. Like, there are just so many teams, and their fantasy options on them are just catapulting to the ground. Just utterly collapsing. So trying to figure out who you can actually play with some level of confidence is hell. It's brutal right now. And I'm not at that point with the Steelers, but I might be getting to that point because I feel like they've hurt you more than they helped you. Going over to the Bills, though, this running game, also unplayable. Speaking of, right, like Zach Moss and Devin Singletary both fucking stink. Josh Allen is great. Stephon Diggs is unbelievable. One of my favorite wide receivers in the NFL and just continues to ball out. And then Gabriel Davis, interesting name to bring up. He's scored in 3 straight games, 4 out of 5. And we'll see how more involved he's going to be going forward as well. Kind of a dynasty name to keep an eye on. But that's all I have for this game. And that's going to do it, I think, for week 14. We have Monday night coming up later tonight. Hopefully, whatever you need to have happen, whether it is Nick Chubb, whether it is Jarvis Landry, whether it is Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, J.K. Dobbins, best of luck to you. Again, you can follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture. We are, where are we at here? Oh, that is the wrong screen. We are in the middle. We are in the beginning, I guess, actually, of 21 days of content. New things dropping every single day here on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok, wherever. Follow me on all those places. Hit that subscribe button down below so you never miss a video from me. And remember, people come and go, but fantasy championships are forever, and I will see you in the next video.